I know, it sounds like something out of one of those really bad Netflix movies, but it's unfortunately for me true. I was over at a friend's house for most of the day yesterday, and I wasn't supposed to be coming home until later in the evening. This is super common for me right now. My friend has a pool and stuff, so I've been at her house a lot since school ended a few weeks ago. Mid-afternoon, we decided to go and just drive around, then wanted to go shopping. I didn't bring my money with me. I keep my savings in cash in this little jar, so I don't spend it so impulsively. We decided to go by my house to grab some cash on the way to the mall. When we got there, my friend waited in the car because I was only going to be there for a couple of minutes. When I walked into my house, though, my parents were on the couch. I don't want to be too overly graphic about what was going on, but my mom was on my dad's lap teasing him, and it was very clear that they were about to make love. They both froze when they saw me, totally expected, because they didn't plan on being interrupted at all. I was frozen too. Then after a couple of seconds, I realized my mom was literally wearing one of my favorite dresses. Like, I wear it all the time. Not even like it's really revealing or anything, just a normal summer dress. We were all looking at each other in shock for a few seconds, before my mom just said, "I'm so sorry, sweetie." I ran back out of the house and was crying by the time I made it to my friend's car. I started explaining to her what I had just seen, and she was calming me down, but then my mother came out of the house after me, literally still wearing my dress. I told my friend to drive away before she got to the car, and we went back to her house. We didn't give her parents any details about what happened, just that I had some family drama. I've been friends with her since way back, so they told me I can sleep at their house for a couple of days until I figure things out. I barely slept last night at all. Every time I close my eyes, it's like I see it in my head. My mom's called me a bunch of times, but I only texted her back to let her know where I am and told her I need time before I'm ready to talk to them. She replied again apologizing and wants me to come home today to talk to them. I don't think I can do that yet. Even typing this out, I've started shaking with nerves about it. What do I do now? I've never felt unsafe in my house before at all. But I also don't know if I'm comfortable being around my parents now that I know that they're literally pretending she's me. I'm so grossed out, and I think I want to burn every piece of clothing I've ever owned. Edit. I really didn't want to write anything erotic about my parents here, but since it's been suggested that they might not have been about to make love a couple of times over messages and stuff, here goes. The top portion of the dress was pulled down, and they were doing stuff. If they weren't about to make love, they were at least being sensual. I am not upset at all that my parents were making love. It's the fact that they were about to make love while my mom was wearing one of my favorite dresses. She and I never share clothes, and I've been trying to rationalize this some other way, but I don't see why she would have gone into my room and gotten that dress, unless it was for what I interrupted them doing. Update. Alright. I promised to give an update on my situation, and honestly, I feel like writing about things has been pretty helpful to me, so here goes. Several people on my initial post advised that I should speak with a therapist before seeing or speaking with either of my parents. I called one I had seen a few times in the past, and she was able to book me in for an emergency session, and she really helped me work through what I saw, as well as my worries, and constructing a list of questions to ask my mom when I spoke with her. I met with my mother over the weekend. We met at this park near our house in the afternoon, and sat away from everyone. My friend who I'm staying with and her boyfriend went with me for moral support, but they hung back and let me talk to my mother alone. I'm not going to go through our entire conversation because we talked for over an hour, but it was pretty much what I had feared. She was role-playing as me when I walked in on her and Dad. She wouldn't confirm how long it had been going on, but gave me a list of several pieces of my clothing, 3 dresses, then 2 of my sleep sets, which she had previously borrowed. She claims they were all cleaned thoroughly before returning them, and I have no reason to believe she wouldn't have cleaned them, but I'm never going to wear any of those things again regardless. It was probably stupid of me, but I asked which one of them came up with the idea for her to roleplay as me. According to her, it was her own idea. I still really don't feel comfortable seeing or talking to my dad, and he hasn't reached out since I walked in on them either, so I guess he isn't comfortable talking to me about it either. My dad was at work when I spoke with her. I made sure of that because I wanted to be able to go by the house and get a few more of my things. She let me go there alone with my friends and get the things I needed before going back to her place. I'm still working on where I go from here. I ended up having to fully explain the situation to my friend's parents. They were both extremely understanding and were willing to let me rent their spare bedroom for a few months while I figured something else out. I'm working on getting more hours at work too. So yeah, that's pretty much all that's happened. I doubt I'll update beyond this, but I'm sincerely thankful to everybody who reached out and tried to help me. Always heard it's natural to act out following a major life event. I guess what I did last night would classify. Thankfully, I get to wake up, walk out the door, and leave my mistake behind me. This isn't the sort of thing I want to do all the time, but I don't think a one-night distraction is too damaging long-term. Update: I gave head in a parking lot after meeting someone. I'm not an erotica writer by any stretch, but writing out my experiences helps me process them, and I've never shared anything like this before, so I thought it might be interesting. Skip to the second break if you'd like to go right to the dirty bits. The first part is more setting the stage and some flirting. So, I actually know nothing about car racing at all, but I got invited to go with some people to the Toronto Indy race last weekend. I'll be honest, I was just trying to get out of the house and didn't really have high expectations for it. But the race was actually surprisingly exciting to watch. Throughout the race, there was this guy in our group who kept explaining to me what was going on, the rules of racing basically, pointing out which cars were which drivers, stuff like that. We'll call him Kevin. He was in his mid to late 20s, don't know his actual age, about 6 feet 2 inches, short curly brown hair, and these really intense green eyes. Clean shaven, with full lips and a big smile. For reference, I'm 5 feet 5 inches, blonde hair down to my mid-back, blue eyes. My friends have jokingly called me Great Value Sydney Sweeney, so go with that for visuals. I'm a bit thicker than her though, with smaller boobs and a larger booty. For most of the day, things were completely PG between us, but towards the end of the race, there was a point where the crowd all stood up, and I couldn't see for like 30 seconds. During that time, he just stepped behind me, grabbed my waist, and lifted me up a few inches so I could see over the two people standing in front of us. But he was really cute and had been sweet to me all day, so it kind of woke me up a little bit sensually. When we sat back down, I decided to push things a little bit and lean into him despite the heat. He didn't say anything, or even move for what felt like a couple of minutes, but then he slid his arm around me lightly. Dumb, but I got this stupid little grin on my face knowing he was at least somewhat into me too. Neither of us pressed anything further until we were walking back to Union Station because we had used the GO to get downtown. We stopped at a crosswalk, and he stood behind me with his hands on my waist again, tipping me back a little bit so I was leaning against his chest. We had been passing a weed pen around as we walked, and my body was kind of buzzing, so I stepped back even further and pressed completely against his chest. I felt him squeeze me a little bit, and I took that as a signal that it was on. I sat on his lap when we got on the train, and I swear this boy was hard the whole way back to our station. He offered to drive me back to my friend's place where I'm staying, which I immediately accepted. She definitely knew what was going on, because she wasn't completely pleased with my decision, but she let me go anyway. When we got to his car, he awkwardly told me he would have to stop for condoms if we were going to do anything. But I told him that was fine, because I didn't want to go that far just yet. We talked and drove around for a little bit, and he was rubbing my thigh as he drove, which felt amazing. I decided that I had kept him waiting long enough, so I reached over and started playing with his prick while he drove. I told him to go to the park near my friend's place, and I just slowly stroked him the whole way there. He kept making all these little faces as he tried to focus on the road. Then his grin at me whenever we stopped made me blush so hard. He parked facing a group of trees, and there wasn't really anyone around, so I leaned over right there and started sucking his prick. I had been teasing him the whole drive, so I just took him into my mouth and started bobbing my head over his full length. I guess around 5 inches? Nothing porn star level, but very manageable for my slightly inexperienced self. He pushed his hand underneath the skirt I was wearing and into my panties. I had probably soaked through them about halfway through the train ride, and I think he liked that because he called me a dirty little thing when he felt it. He started playing with my clit pretty aggressively, causing me to moan over his prick. Then I think the intensity of the whole situation caught up to him because with no warning other than, "I'm go," he came in my mouth. It surprised me, and I did not manage to swallow all of it, but I licked the rest off of him before sitting back on the passenger seat. All the while, his fingers kept teasing me in my panties. I can't usually come from fingering alone, and he offered to eat me out, but I didn't want him to for some reason. I usually love oral, so no explanation for that. I just fixed myself up a little bit and walked to my friend's house. He's texted me daily, but I honestly don't think I'm interested in him beyond this one spontaneous thing. It was really hot though. I've gotten myself off to it several times since. Update. I made myself come in the park last night. Alright, so I posted here yesterday about how I've been going around wearing sundresses without panties on. Well, I ended up chatting with this really hot couple from the United Kingdom, and they talked me into getting a teensy bit bolder with my exploits. Last night, around 1 in the morning, I went to this park that isn't too far from where I'm staying right now, and I took my little vibe with me. I didn't have the courage to sit on a bench where someone might actually walk by, but there's this really big tree with bushes around it that I went to hide behind. I was dripping already when I pulled up my dress just because of how hot the entire thing was. Once I started playing, it did not take me long at all to come. Then I just stood there for a few minutes, legs shaking, shocked with myself before going back to the house. Update. I've mostly stopped wearing panties with my sundresses. Kind of a mild confession by the standards of this sub, probably, but over the past week or so, I've mostly stopped wearing panties underneath my sundresses. Most of them are about my mid-thigh. It's been a really freeing feeling, honestly. There have been a couple of times where I've shown off a bit more than anticipated thanks to a breeze, and that has been so hot. Anyway, that's my small slutty confession. Update. So, my story ended up shared on YouTube by some relatively big channels, and I've gotten a bunch of messages asking if my situation has improved, and for me to provide another update. I didn't know if I was going to keep posting here after sharing some of the more explicit things I've done since moving out of the house, but honestly, I don't see the harm in it, and sometimes the messages I get are really sweet. So here goes. I suppose things have gotten both better and a bit worse for me since the last time I updated. I checked back, and the last time I posted an official update was almost 3 weeks ago, but I swear it feels like it's been months. I can't sleep really well because I just have nightmares about walking in on my parents' finds, role-playing as me, and I'm tired all the time. I've been working with my therapist through this, and she's gotten me on to some relaxation techniques that help. As far as my living situation goes, I'll be moving into my own bedroom in an apartment with 2 of my coworkers at the beginning of September. Their roommate is moving out, and they were able to give me a good price on rent. Think they took pity on me a little bit, since they're both a bit older. Living with my friend isn't working out the best. I mentioned in one of the other updates that her dad was pretty clearly eye-freaking me whenever he was around. He's pushed things a decent bit further since, and started getting grabby with me when he can get me alone. I've developed this really bad hypersensuality thing for some reason since all the crap happened with my parents. Yes, I am in therapy. Yes, I am working on it. But as a result of that, for some reason, I do absolutely nothing to stop him when he grabs at me. It's damn sick, but I know on some level, I like the attention. I've been avoiding being around the house as much as possible because I know in the back of my head, I'm just not going to say no to him. September can't come fast enough in that regard. Work's been giving me plenty of extra hours, and I've been saving as much money as possible while also slowly buying myself a few pieces of clothes. I've got a plan to get myself back up to a somewhat full wardrobe by Christmas or so. Sorry these posts have become so dirty. I mean, I know the first relationship advice post wasn't exactly a Disney movie, but I know it's gotten substantially more explicit since. To the people still trying to give advice and offer their fresh perspective, thank you. I've actually been given some really good advice from random people on the internet. Bad update. Aside from my therapist, I don't have anyone I can discuss my situation with. Random strangers on the internet have been an outlet for me. Messy, but cleaner than dumping all of this on anyone I actually know. I'm sure you can all tell where this is headed, given the title and the trigger warning at the top. Her dad banged me. He found out that I'm moving out of their house at the end of the month and took the first opportunity he had to push things further than he had been going before. Where I live, employers are required to give 2 days off in a row each week. I've been taking extra shifts where I can, but corporations are cracking down on that right now, despite the fact that we've been understaffed and there weren't any available for me to take. The second day of that was 2 days ago. I spent most of the morning with my friend, but she had this family thing to go to with her mom and grandmother, so I was by myself after that. I mentioned in my last post, I've been avoiding him when I'm able to find another place to be, and during the day, I go for a lot of walks and stuff. But I can't be out of the house all the time, and I hadn't figured out what I was going to go do yet. About a half an hour. Just 30 minutes. That's how long it took for him to decide he wanted to come tease me again. I was in their den area playing with their 2 cats when he came downstairs. I knew immediately what he had in mind because he just had that look about him. His standard move is coming up behind me and grabbing my ass before reaching around to my chest. I guess he had made his decision to go further when he came down because he skipped that entirely and just pulled my shirt off and started playing with my nipples. I was moaning pretty quickly, and I could feel him hard pressing into my back too. He told me that he was sad to hear that I'm not going to be around the house much longer. He told me that I'm fun and that he likes having me there. Freaking of course he does. I feel so bad for his wife. He pushed his hand into the leggings I was wearing and started playing with my clit while kissing the back of my neck. That was the point where I went from deer in the headlights to active participant. I couldn't make myself say no. The whole thing turned me on, and at the time, I didn't damn care about anything else. I reached back and gave him a handjob for a few minutes, but I lost focus towards the end of it because he made me come on his fingers twice. It was just the heat of the situation doing it to me. I've thought back, and it's not like he did anything special otherwise. From there, he led me to their bedroom upstairs and banged me on him and his wife's bed. My friend and her mom were gone until the evening. He and I spent pretty much the entire afternoon making love. What's weird about the whole thing is he's actually really sweet. Like he's nice to me, and other than the groping, he asks for consent before he does anything to me. The big problem is I damn kept giving him consent. Every time he asked to switch positions or move to one of the other rooms, I was screaming at myself mentally to turn him down, say no, and leave. But every time, I find myself nodding with a smile, making eyes at him, and letting him do whatever he wants to me. My brain just loves making me into a human toy, I guess. It didn't end when they came home either. It's like the game is on or something for both of us. Whenever we can find time alone, we're all over each other. It's horrible. I went into his office last night when he was working and blew him while she was sitting downstairs watching TV. She's given me no reason to hurt her. In fact, his wife is one of the nicest people I've met and so supportive of me. None of that stopped me though. I went anyway because I was horny and he was there. He ate me on the desk afterwards, and I had to come looking at the pictures of their family on the wall across the room. No idea what I'm going to do with my life moving forward or how I'm going to handle this situation. I'm sure I've thoroughly nuked my life. It's just a matter of time when it all goes off. If you actually read all this, and you're not completely disgusted with my existence as a human being, then I thank you for your consideration. I know I'm not making it easy to view myself as anything but a problem at this point. Thanks for listening to me vent. I got evidence I mentioned in a comment that I found somewhere else to stay last night as a way of removing myself from the situation with my friend's dad. I was able to find somewhere else to crash over the weekend, so I won't be going back there, at least not immediately. I got the evidence I need to tell his wife what's gone on, though. He actually thought it would be a good idea to text me. Probably think nothing will come of it because I was so willing when we made love. Currently working on a plan for getting the rest of my things from that house and telling her what happened. I know she's going to hate me. My friend is going to hate me. But it needs to be done, and I'm gonna accountability. Alright, so I'm going to try to hold myself to account as best I can here. My friend's dad reached out to me via text late last night, as I mentioned before, and with the advice of some Redditors, I sexted with him just enough to get incriminating screenshots, and then told him I was going to bed. I'm back at my friend's house now. He isn't home. I told her I stayed with a friend, and she didn't really question it much. I really don't have much here at all, so I've got it all packed up, and I'm going to get it out of the house before I tell her what happened. I'm going to let her tell her mother, or give her the option to be there when I do. Her mom knows me, but I feel like it might be better coming from someone who hasn't banged her husband. My roommates-to-be from work got back to me already too. They told their other roommate enough about my situation that she's fine with me crashing on the couch for the rest of the month and stacking my stuff in the basement until she moves out. I am so lucky to have people who were willing to give me a place so quickly. I haven't slept at all. I've just been awake thinking about everything. Think I got a couple of hours, but I'm mostly surviving on coffee right now, haha. Now I want to talk a little bit about my own guilt regarding what happened. I do think I was pressured into the situation, but I don't think that absolves me of all responsibility, like some people have suggested. Once it started, I was an enthusiastic participant, and I went back more eagerly. Even sexting with him last night was kind of hot for me. I screwed up, but that's where I'm at right now mentally. I'll make a Tinder at some point to try to find something ongoing, stable, and not completely destructive. This whole thing terrifies me now, because my friend and her family are the ones who have been keeping this secret from people I know socially. Pretty good chance now that all my friends are going to find out the whole story now. I think I could live with just being slut-shamed, but people knowing the whole thing seems scarier. Honestly, it's a good argument for me to stop these posts, but I don't know. I feel connected to writing it out somehow. It helps me work through things mentally in a way I don't think journaling alone would do. Your guys' input has been so damn helpful, you have no idea. Even the people giving me crap, it really helps. Anyway, that's what's going through my brain today. I guess this is my hell life journal now. Probably my final update. Hi, so my situation has calmed down a little bit now. I've been crashing on the couch of my new apartment this past week, and honestly, things have been pretty good. I'm putting that right at the top, so if all you're looking for is to know that I'm safe, and I think that I'm going to be okay, you have it here. Stuff still got kind of messy as I was leaving my friend's house. I've definitely burned bridges there, but there's nothing I can do about that now. I still ended up sleeping in my friend's house for a couple more days after deciding I was going to figure out a way to tell her and/or her mom about what had happened between her and her dad. It was 2 nights, and he found an excuse to bang me the second one. It wasn't sweet or even caring. It just felt mechanical at that point. He came to my bedroom, flipped me over, took me on the bed, and I didn't do a single thing to stop it. I never asked him not to. I was still entirely frozen. I'm disgusted with myself. He left immediately after because his wife was in their room. I cried a lot and started writing a letter to my friend and her mom. I talked with my therapist about everything. We've gone over everything during 2 sessions, and I'm in a lot better mental state now as far as knowing I'm not necessarily a horrible person for not being able to turn down someone who had power over me. My therapist didn't think it was a good idea for me to tell my friend what happened, though. That should be left up to her parents to inform her, so my letter ended up just being to her mom. I'm not going to put the text of it on here because it gives a lot of details that I haven't gone into specifics about, but I gave her the letter on Thursday. I just went over when I knew she'd be around and told her that I needed to talk to her. I sat there while she read the letter I wrote, shaking the whole time. I just wanted to get up and run. My therapist told me her reaction might not be what I expected it to be. And she was correct there. She didn't cry, she didn't yell, she just asked me to show her the text messages on my phone. I don't think she really believed me until then, because after she saw the messages, she called me a damn harlot and told me to never come back to her house or around her family. I don't think she's told my friend anything, because she's still reaching out to make sure that I'm all right after moving out of her place and not really telling her what was going on with me. I'm completely blowing her off. It feels fake to maintain a friendship with her now given what's happened. But I also don't know if that's cruel of me, and I should give her an explanation of some sort. As far as the stuff with my parents goes, they literally haven't said a single thing to me since I told my mom to stay away. I kind of expected something, but they are respecting my request by not reaching out. I think that's everything I have to update people on. Living with a bunch of other adults is kinda weird. I'm not used to cooking for myself on a nightly basis. It's an adjustment, but I'll get there. Thank you, everyone, for your help since I posted my original situation.